Farmers are aging.
Perfect.
And their kids don't want to be in the family business. This is a Wall Street Journal story. This is the very, very important of what's taking place. It's a great story. Don Gunip is running out of time. The fifth-generation farmer still wakes early in the morning to tend to roughly 1,000 acres of corn and soybeans and 40 cattle, but for 4 decades of grueling work dealing with prostate, cancer, and surgery to replace both of his hips with titanium implants has taken a toll. The 74-year-old estimates he can maintain the current workload for a couple more years. 74 years old. Under the gaze of generations of the Gunips, the black and white photos, he gathers his 4 siblings to chart the future of their family's farm and contemplates a day where they no longer cares for the land that runs on that road. It's his family's road. The natural choice to take over, his son or daughter left for college and now work in corporate fields. His siblings made the same decision. It's disappointing to me, he says, holding back tears. That's the way the dice were rolled, and you have to accept what life gives you. The number of farmers in America have been shrinking for years, but rising costs and weak commodity prices are pushing more families out at a faster rate. In 2015, 315 farms filed for bankruptcy, up 46% from 2024. U.S. court data shows those left are aging. There are more farmers 75 and older than under the age of 35. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they are facing tough choices and tougher prospects. Family agriculture is in crisis, and American farmers and ranchers are fighting for their livelihood, says National Farmers Union president. What do you say, Jeff?
This is going to sound cold, but the key here is family farms. Family farms are just uncompetitive. Factory farms are far more competitive, far more productive. The cost of food goes down, which is, as a society, what we want. We want cheaper food. In fact, we've been so successful at it, our poorest people are more likely to be obese than not. So what the market is saying in a self-organizational structure, that family farms cannot compete. And it brings us back to the AI argument. We've been through this before. In 1800, 90% of the American workforce were farm workers. Mm-hmm. Either you owned your farm or you worked for somebody else. By 1900, it was down to like 40%, 30%. It only went further from there. So the only question brings us back to AI is we're doing the same type of thing here, technological revolution. Will human beings be able to be creative enough and stay, as you say, Patrick, stay on top of the heap enough so that we just reinvent new roles? Because people don't want to work, people want to survive. There'll be a place for creativity, that kind of thing. The only question for AI is whether or not this is actually different. You know, they keep calling it the singularity. I'm kind of doubtful about that. I mean, it's going to definitely revolutionize the future. But as far as economic processes are concerned, we've eliminated industries before. You used to go in an elevator in New York City in the 1920s. Somebody had to press the button for you, right? We don't miss the elevator operators, right? We don't miss telephone operators. In fact, we would not have had the internet if it hadn't been for the elimination of telephone operators. We automated that process. Where did the telephone operators go? Where did the elevator operators go? They found new employment doing something else. So as AI takes over more of the mundane stuff first, do people invent new industries and opportunities to absorb the rest of the labor force? There'll be a shift, not an elimination. Mm-hmm. That's the optimistic take. I don't know that for sure. None of us know that for sure, but that's the optimistic take. And this is part of it. Moving unproductive farms out of the system because they're unproductive. They can't compete. That's a societal good. Nobody's making that decision. The marketplace is making that decision. And over time, people who used to run farms or used to work on the farms will migrate to something else, which is exactly what this story is telling us. There is a hopeful element in it.
Pomp.
I think there's 3 things on this. The part this article left out is definitely like big farming is somewhat of an oligopoly and definitely has made family farming very difficult. If you go talk to farmers, they actually point to that as the biggest kind of culprit. They'll also point to things like tariffs, et cetera, that may have had smaller impact. But the big thing is just like, the John Deeres of the world, et cetera, have had this consolidated power. There's this great book, and I always, whenever I come on here, I like to bring kind of gifts for the audience maybe. And this book, I think, is probably the single book I've read in the last year that has made me think differently about a bunch of things. It's called Leaving a Legacy. Basically what this guy does is he looks at society and he says, hey, there's things that we have been convinced of that may not actually be the right way to think about this. And he comes at it from the perspective of if you want to build, 1,000-year family, if you want to think very long term. And 3 key things he talks about. One is nepotism. We've been told that nepotism is a bad thing, but he actually uses the example of family farms. He says, if you're a fifth generation farmer, you don't go and try to find who can get the extra 15% yield out of your farm. You think about, let me raise my son or daughter to take over the farm because this has provided value. Yeah, this has provided value to our family and food, et cetera, and helped us get a living. So he's got a bunch of stuff there. Second thing is philanthropy. He talks about the idea that we've somehow, in this bureaucratic process, been convinced that, giving water to kids in Africa, very noble cause. But most people who do that are never going to actually meet those kids. And yet in your own neighborhood, in your local community, there's a bunch of people who need help. And so philanthropy used to be this thing that was more kind of local rather than global. And so we've gotten away from that. But then the third thing he talks about is he spends a lot of time talking about this idea that as individuals, we have been convinced that everything that we work our entire lives for, we should not give to our children. We should not actually pass that wealth on to them.
He says that.
He goes right at the heart of many of these issues, which I think consensus has been reached. And his point is, if you think long term, then you need multiple generations to accomplish things. He goes back to the farmer. But the other thing he says that I think is really important, feeds into this AI, feeds into the farm, et cetera, is a lot of people don't want to give money to their kids because they say, I'm going to mess them up. His point is, well, no, you just didn't raise your kids right then. Because there's plenty of families who pass on money through generations, and if they did a good job raising their kids, and their kids aren't messed up.
I'm 100% aligned with everything you said right there.
Yeah,
That
fascinating book.
That is a topic that's been very important to me the last 5 years with generational planning. I brought a guy on the podcast probably 10 years ago when I had my second son. He was a guy that deals with the billionaire families in Seattle. And he tells a story about the Franklin Templeton story, which apparently they allowed him to tell the story publicly. They had 16 grandkids, of which 15 of them had drug and alcohol issues. And only one of them was the one. Again, this is him telling the story on what he shared. And he said, typically, by the time a person like me shows up, it's too late. You need me before you have kids. You need me to start thinking about this stuff before. And then there's a bunch of legacy planning events you can go to talk about what it looks like. G1, G2, G3, G4, G5, and it's very enlightening. So I just ordered a book myself right now when you recommended it, so we'll see how that book is. We have our annual Sales Leadership Summit that is coming up. This year we're doing it at the Trump Doral. I went to the property the other day. Unbelievably beautiful property. And if you're a sales person or a sales leader or a CEO that wants to drive sales and find superstars and develop superstars, Rob, play that clip that you have. I think Alicia sent it to you. Go right ahead, buddy.
I got a question for you. Which of these two skill sets guarantee success more? You being able to recruit rock stars, 8s and 9s, coming in talented and they change the company overnight. Or two, you knowing how to develop rock stars. Which of these two guarantees success? From my experience, when I was not a rock star and I got lucky and I recruited a rock star, I could never keep the rock star. Eventually, I obsessed over developing people to succeed in sales. Once I did that, all the rock stars started knocking on the doors because they wanted to work with me. This is why once a year I host an event called the Sales Leadership Summit. This year we're doing it March 25th through the 27th at Trump Doral. If you want to find out how you and your team can attend this event to learn how to become better sales leaders, click on a link below, fill out your information. One of our consultants will get a hold of you.
There you go, Rob. That's the QR code, and we're going to put the link below. Rob, if you can put the link below as well for people to go learn more about it and fill out the information. One of our representatives will call you and answer any questions you may have about the event, and hopefully we'll see you there March 25th to the 27th at the Trump Doral.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.